Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Mario Cristobal Show presented by Kia. Joe Zagacki alongside my broadcast partner, Don Bailey Jr. University of Miami head coach Mario Cristobal joins us momentarily. We'll talk about the end of the game with Coach Cristobal, but coming up this Saturday is Miami and North Carolina at 7:30. Canes own Carolina. North Carolina's won 4 in a row in this series.
Yes, they have, Joe, and what a great time for Miami to take the show on the road, go to Kenan Stadium, and pull out a victory. And it's going to be one heck of a game. I mean, they've got what many feel is the best quarterback in the country.
They're averaging 36 points a game. He's throwing for over 300 yards a game. He's a Heisman Trophy candidate.
That he is, and he can do everything. He can run, he can throw, and he understands the offense. But where I see a lot of improvement on North Carolina is on the defensive side of the ball. They're starting to catch up.
This is a big game for the University of Miami. You lose to Georgia Tech, you got to find a makeup game somewhere. This would be a nice place to start.
Prime time in front of a bunch of North Carolina fans, I think it works out perfect.
Okay, when we come back, we'll talk with head coach Mario Cristobal about Georgia Tech and North Carolina as we continue right after this. Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Mario Cristobal Show. Joe Zagacki alongside Don Bailey Jr., University of Miami head coach Mario Cristobal. This week, the Hurricanes travel to Chapel Hill, North Carolina to take on the Tar Heels at 7:30 for a big game against undefeated North Carolina. Coach, first a look back at Georgia Tech. You've had to answer this a million times and start from press conference to press conference. We might as well start our show at the finish of the game. Maybe walk us through that and what's happening now moving forward.
Well, like I've mentioned a million times before, it's obviously a tough game, tough loss to take. We certainly we played a really good defense throughout the course of the game. We won ourselves offensively, but gave ourselves a chance to win. And at the end of the game, the right call was to go ahead and kneel it down. And instead, I take ownership in not doing so. And the next play led to them getting a couple extra plays and preventing us from winning the game. So we've all taken it like we do anything else. We take it together. Certainly, everybody came in today with a great attitude and ready to go to work, understanding that our best opportunities are right there in front of us. And so our guys are coming with a great mindset and ready to get after it.
Coach, it would be somewhat simple if that was the only situation that happened in that ball game, but you had more than that happen. There was turnovers and there was penalties and there was a lot of things that have to get corrected from that game to the next game. How do you approach that?
Well, just honestly and with transparency, really go right at it, assess it from top to bottom. We hurt ourselves in the red zone. We hurt ourselves with some penalties. We were very uncharacteristically not performing to a standard where we had performed to a high standard too in the areas of red zone. We had done well on third down. We certainly gained a lot of yardage, but we weren't putting the ball in the end zone. We had short fields. We didn't convert them into touchdowns, and the defense really played well. They were in tough situations. They went out there and had some really, really big stops. So we just didn't play complimentary football, but we kept battling the whole way through and certainly gave ourselves a chance at the end. So, a lot of lessons learned, and certainly every ounce of focus is on going forward.
Coach, is there any way to present that information? I guess you have to also look at it and pull some of those positives out of that game, right? You're right there at the end, going to win the game. You're plugging holes all night long, it seems like, because of one thing or another, many of which you just mentioned. All that being said, your team showed some fight, a lot of fight and grit, to the point where there were some really good things that did happen.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether a win or a loss, you always assess what you did. I mean, if things are not good enough in a win, they're certainly not good enough in a loss either, right? And the vice versa. So every opportunity to fix, to enhance, to correct, just to get better, we take those things, we use the time, we invest in them, and we make those things happen. So there was plenty for us to fix and to address from this game, but there was also some bright spots and some progress in a team that just kept fighting, but it wasn't enough, and obviously I got to do better myself, and we will do better as an organization going forward.
Coach, let's talk about some good. Xavier Restrepo, another big day. I mean, the season he's had through these first 5 weeks is probably what we have all been waiting for and hoping that he would produce. And a lot of it was because he was injured, but he's healthy and he's doing a great job.
Doing a great job. Tyler and him have a great connection. Mm-hmm. The offensive line's providing a lot of time. And we're dialing up some good stuff for him, and he's taking full advantage of them. Credit to him. We're going to lean on him going forward as well to keep getting better and making plays.
Ruben Bain doesn't look like he can be blocked. In fact, one time they didn't block him, but that's another story. But he looks like he is continuing to grow and gaining a lot of confidence.
He is. He doesn't play like a typical freshman. He's beyond his years in terms of maturity, toughness, physicality, his understanding of the game. He was coached at a really high level, and he performs at a really high level, and his appetite to get better is awesome.
Coach, Colby Young had an outstanding catch, and he also got involved in a car crash on the goal line when he was blocking. But he's really developing extremely fast, and looks like he's turning into the guy that everybody wants him to be.
Yeah, he is. He's a hard worker. He is just a great competitor, a great teammate. He's made some big plays. And you know what? Those blocks are big plays also. It may not be with the ball in his hands, but they are big plays.
Okay, we know what happened with Don Shane, but the other side of that is he ran for, he was knocking on 100 yards, and he looked like the running back that was the two-time Dade County Player of the Year. What have you guys done to get him to this point where he looks like a guy that can be a powerful player for you?
Yeah, we just pushed him, get him every single day to understand that sky's the limit as long as you are willing to push yourself, to put the right stuff in your body, the right kind of foods, to lean out. Trust that, his injured knee more, which is he's fine now. He's 100% healthy. He's been through a lot in his career. He's an excellent young man who's working really hard, and certainly has gained the trust of his coaching staff and his teammates.
Coach, I was glad to see Branson Dean making it back onto the field. He was out a couple weeks, and the energy level that he brings and his ability to move so quick, he's a twitchy guy, but he brings an element that's needed on that front.
And plays with toughness.
Yeah.
He plays with toughness. He's stout. He gets his hands on people, understands how to defeat single blocks, double teams, down blocks. He's a really seasoned veteran and a guy we're really happy to have back.
I also think this was a good one. James Williams had an interception. Did not have an interception a year ago. His first interception since the first game 2 years ago. So big play for him. Sometimes that comes in bunches, right? We saw that with Couch. So that was a big play by James Williams.
It sure was, and he's playing at a high level. Certainly a guy that we have a ton of appreciation for. Works really, really hard, and is such a key member of this organization.
Now we know I had the pick too, and that was a big play.
It sure was. It sure was. Another guy, key member of this organization, relentless competitor. Really happy he's on this team.
All right, Coach, we'll talk more about North Carolina coming up, Canes in North Carolina. But first, time for our Kia High Performance Player of the Week. And this week, it is James Williams, and the secondary, Don, comes up with a huge interception for the University of Miami.
Well, Joe, I love the way that he broke on the football. The receiver, tight end, actually thought he was going to get it. He was in position for it, but James does a nice job after the interception. And look at the escort, all those black jerseys trying to lead him into the end zone. And then when you look at the back copy, you can tell that Haynes King did not see him at all. So you got a great job by Williams breaking on the football and then getting yards after the interception.
James Williams, his first interception since the first game of last year. James Williams and our High Performance Moment of the Week, presented by Kia. All right, this week it's Miami and North Carolina, 7:30 kickoff at Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Tar Heels will go into that game undefeated. Drake May, the quarterback there, he's completing about 72% of his passes. They're averaging 36 points a game. He's throwing for 325 a game. He is quite a threat.
He's a threat in every sense of the word. As good of a football player as you'll find. He makes it happen in a bunch of different ways, and he's a great leader as well. So certainly looking forward to the opportunity and the challenge.
One area on the North Carolina team that's improved greatly is defensively. They may not be at the top of many categories, but they certainly are from the middle on up, and that's a big improvement over the last couple of years.
They're on the constant ascent. We see them as a top 10 defense because of what their trajectory and what they've done in their last few games. They're real physical up front. They're really big, powerful, and stout. And their linebackers run like the wind. Their edges, their inside guys, they're not only good run stoppers, they're excellent pass rushers. as well, and they're athletic and fast at the nickel spot, the safety spot, at corner. It's a complete team.
Now, you read my mind in the linebackers with Cedric Gray leads them in tackles, and the other guy's got a perfect football name, Power. All right, Power Eccles, and kind of gave us fits a year ago.
Both those guys are excellent football players.
Coach, when you're looking at dealing with Drake May, how do you approach that? I mean, there's not anything he doesn't do great, honestly. I mean, he's one of the top prospects in the country, and he's been excellent since he stepped on campus.
Absolutely. You know, there's going to be times where you're going to have one-on-ones, whether it be up front, whether it be on the back end or whatnot at linebacker, covering tight ends and backs. And then there's going to be times where, you know, he might tuck the ball or get it to one of his weapons, and you got to be able to be successful in those one-on-ones more time than not. So it's going to, again, require everyone to be on point, and we expect our guys to do that.
Have a big back to help out Drake May. Hampton's averaging about 7.5 yards a carry. He's played a lot of football for them. What do you see in him?
Power, speed, great hips, great feet, gets in and out of his breaks and cuts really well. And then he could just run you right over, run by you. Can make you miss subtly, or just go right over you. He's that kind of a back. He's a complete back.
Coach, special teams last week, Borregalis was perfect in his deal, but the importance of traveling, we've got to bring that up. Special teams is a huge equation, especially on the road.
It is. It is. Hidden yardage, points, preventing points, getting people on the ground that are dangerous returners. All those things are critical. Preventing fakes, those are things that don't ever pop up, right? Because you get yourself in a defensive formation or a punt return formation that prevents the other team from running their fakes. And that's something that probably goes unnoticed because they never end up materializing. So all in all that stuff, critically important, and we feel like we're improving in that area every week.
They did change coordinators this year because their offensive coordinator went to Wisconsin. Did it change a lot with their offense?
There's enough change in there, but there's also some of the principles that they have used in the years past are still there. They do just a lot of things well. They make you prepare for a lot, you know, and they stretch you vertically and horizontally. And they do enough week to week where you've got to continually be able to adapt throughout the course of the game because they haven't shown it before. So really, they're a challenge and a great opportunity at the same time.
Coach, I think one thing that goes unnoticed about North Carolina is they do a great job of recruiting that area. Being from South Florida, you may not recognize a lot of the names, but they go national some, but they're heavily tied into their neck of the woods, so to speak, and they get some very good football players.
They do. They've got a lot of high-level college and NFL talent on that roster, and they're coached really well. They do a really good job.
I look at one of the things that jumps out about their offense is third downs. So I would imagine getting them off the field would be a gigantic part of this game, especially considering the tempo that they go with. Right?
Every single week, right? Winning third down is critical. Getting the ball back and sustaining drives on offense, you couldn't place more of a premium on that, especially with a dangerous supporting cast and a dangerous quarterback like we have this week.
Coach, let's go big picture a little bit. We spent a lot of time before the Temple game talking about a road game, the first road game. How do you make the travel squad? What are some of the parameters at the University of Miami to get on the plane or get on the bus, as they say?
Well, you've got to be able to play winning football. You have to earn the trust of your coaches, of your teammates. You've got to be a guy that's obviously you're going to just add value to the team on the road, help bring victory home. And if there's a couple spots that are open, you know, in terms of the limitation, you know, we are limited to the amount of guys that we could take on the road. A scout team player of the week, a guy that's given great effort. You'd like for that spot to be reserved for one of those guys or a guy that is being groomed to start joining the travel squad. So he understands the processes and what goes into preparing the team once we're on the road.
This also is only the second ACC game for the University of Miami. Second one, I think, for Carolina as well. But with the new scheduling, there are a lot of matchups over the next 8 weeks that are going to take place, 7 weeks that are going to take place. So you have to take the approach, I guess, right, that this is not a sprint. This is going to be a marathon. There are going to be a lot of different results that matter.
This is a complete marathon. This thing, you know, it pains to resolve itself in the final couple of weeks. So every single week is important. Playing with your best football, every single opportunity is critical.
Coach Maui Noah went out at right tackle, and McCoy came in. Play count was 14 or 50, somewhere in that number. But he looked pretty darn good. He came in, and I mean, you see progress from a guy that was a high school tight end, and you talk about development. Everyone was talking about how do I get developed. Well, he was a high school tight end, had very little experience, came in a pressure situation, and did a great job.
Yeah, proud of that guy.
Yeah.
You know, come a long, long way. Came in, worked his tail off, and every time he's been called upon, he's answered the bell. And so, big future for him here at the University of Miami.
Henry Parrish got into the end zone again, actually got in twice. But Henry, he just seems to just keeps plugging right along, and I think showing maybe even more physicality this year.
He is. He's worked on his body. He's worked on his game. He's become a much more patient runner. And when he hits it, he hits it. You know, he's developed an extra gear, and he has shown that he can break away and make some big plays, and he could gain the tough yards as well. You know, keeps his feet moving, and has moved some piles for some critical gains.
The importance of Richard Smith getting more touches. We saw him in the backfield. We know what he does at receiver and returns, but you just got to get the ball in his hand.
Yeah, he's an explosive playmaker who is, you know, he's done a pretty good job with the system, but is still learning it. And another guy that has a big future, just has to keep developing. You know, I know everybody wants all of it right now, but the game of football is still a development sport, and guys like that are going to do extremely well in the system, and we look forward to helping him continue to grow and mature.
And we bounce back to your defense for a moment. Again, there was only 250 yards that Georgia Tech got, and up until the last drive, there were no real explosive plays. I thought your secondary did a really nice job holding up against Singleton and Rutherford. Those guys can fly, and virtually for 59 minutes were eliminated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the defenses, they've been playing at a high level,
Right.
You know, and they're gaining more and more confidence in the scheme and in each other, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. They want to get better. I think the offense and the defense going against each other in practice every single day is one of the best things that we do, whether it be in the form of 2-minute team run play action, 7-on-7, team pass. It's a true iron sharpens iron mentality and work periods, and it's helped us out a bunch.
Which the value of the ability to rotate players in. You see Flag in there a lot, and Maui Noah, and then you're on your defensive line. You've got all these guys that are going in the mix. Especially now you're to the heart of the ACC, 7 weeks in a row. That's positively going to pay off.
Yeah, we've got 3 or 4 positions where we could do that at, and the goal is to have all positions be able to do that. We're not there yet. We're about halfway there, but that's such an advantage when you can do that, because guys get better. Guys continue. You just keep expanding everybody's role, and you keep competition high, so you're getting everybody's best.
You know, to pick up on that for a moment, Coach, because when you are able to sub like that, there's not a drop off. There's been, there's been a drop off in years past. Now there's not as big a drop off, and so maybe address that, number one, and number two, does that also help with the mentality of what we saw the other night, where if your team gets in trouble, you got guys that will keep trying to dig you out of a ditch, because they're getting an opportunity and there's not a drop off.
Yeah, well, again, as long as there's no drop off,
Yeah.
you know, and we have some positions where that's the case, and others where it's not.
Still
there
working
yet.
on it.
Yeah, we still have to, we still have to recruit, develop. Some guys on the team have to develop, but overall, there's a lot of progress in those areas as a team overall, but in some positions more than others.
We're going to talk about maintaining strength and conditioning in season. You know, it's the big topic when you're not on the field, but this time of year it's equally as important, especially getting towards the later part of the season.
Without a doubt. And what shows up a lot at this time of year is January, February, March, and April and May. You know, the foundation that you set, and then what you built upon that throughout the course of the summer. And then throughout the season, hitting those 2 lifts a week where you, some of it's maintenance, but some of it is still work. You know, you want to maintain a good 90-95% of your strength gains, with the 5% loss being just due to contact, I would say numbers attrition, right? Your body's banged up, you can't throw at the same amount of weight, but you're not being, you don't succumb to atrophy. You're continually just keeping your body tuned up, strong, particularly your legs, your core, right? Being able to unlock your hips, being able to run your feet through contact, being able to maintain high levels or high speed acceleration for long periods of time, and your conditioning. So all those things play a part together, and Coach Feld and his staff do a great job managing that.
I want to hit you up on this for a moment, more in the lines of recruiting for a second. I was going by a practice the other day of a high school team, I was just watching the coaching staff work, and there've been some great high-level games recently in South Florida, but maybe the coaching these kids are getting in South Florida, the dedication. A lot of these guys, it's not their first job, but they are putting a lot of time and heart and soul into coaching these kids here in Dade. Brad, what have you noticed when you go out and have the ability to see some of that?
Yeah, in South Florida, they live it. You know, they truly live it because they're not compensated much for it. They do it for the love of the game. They do it for the love of the young men that they're coaching and helping them, you know, progress not only in their academic life but in their potential, you know, football opportunities, you know, that come with scholarships at all levels. And so what you see a really competitive atmosphere as it relates to football, and it's everywhere. You can get on I-95 and you'll hit 80 schools between here and Palm Beach, right? Yeah. Just a mile off the highway. So, and that's not counting all the other ones. So it's a way of life down here.
Bro, the impact like your high school coach had on you, I know what mine had on me, but how you see that those men influence these players for the rest of their lives. I mean, I think it's really an untold story a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's almost the man. I don't think it gets any more important than those guys because I wouldn't trade the experience with my high school coach for anything because they do teach you like true toughness, honesty, no BS, like deal with it. No matter how good or how bad, look at it right between the eyes, take it like a man, and go forward in a world where, you know, we need more of that, you know, and if you can get your team to think like that in the hardest times, if you could display that, you know, in the toughest times, you know what, you're going to grow. And not only is your team going to be better, these guys are going to be good fathers, right? They're going to be good husbands. They're going to be able to provide for their household and be able to deal with maybe, you know, some bad happenings, some bad occurrences, some tragedy. So those guys, they're everything. Besides being like that last pit stop before going off to college and whatnot, these are like eternal mentors for life, I would say.
The last thing on this subject also, before we let you go, this is the time of the year in the high schools where there's some great games, and I'll leave something out, but you know, Central played Northwestern the other night, and Chaminade and Central played each other, and I saw Heritage playing Western High School the other night. The gauntlet that these kids are going through, how much does that count when you look at in recruiting to see the battles that they're going through? That's got to help them being battle tested coming out, right?
Without a doubt. The tape that I love to watch most are those kind of games where the competition matches up, right? I don't particularly not very interested in watching, you know, a prospect play against a lesser opponent. I want to see him play against a real one. Doesn't have to be like a superstar college player they're playing against, but there's some great high school players out there that might never play college that'll whoop your butt, right? And that are going to be tough. And also like to see these guys in tough situations when they're down in a game, how they rally the troops, how they react when they get held. And are they, you know, screaming and crying for pass interference? Or are they just fighting through and trying to make the catch and then on to the next play? You know, you look for championship DNA, and then you make your decisions from there.
I see a lot of orange and green at the high school games, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right. Carolina this week, the very best of luck.
Thank you very much. Go Canes.
University of Miami head coach Mario Cristobal. Stay tuned. We'll continue with more in the show right after this. Back in the Mario Cristobal Show, presented by Kia. Joe Zagacki, Don Bailey Jr. Saturday night, Kenan Stadium, 7:30 kickoff. Miami and North Carolina. Both teams are averaging 500 yards a game in offense.
It's going to be a lot of offense, and may the best defense wins. That's what it's looking like.
A lot of times it comes down to protecting the football or running the ball. As we talked with Coach Cristobal, they do have a big back.
They do, Joe, and I think he's going to be a challenge as you would expect from that team. They've also got a very experienced offensive line, and their defense is better than advertised.
Okay, Hurricanes and the Tar Heels on Saturday at 7:30 for Don Bailey Jr. and head coach Mario Cristobal. I'm Joe Zagacki. We'll see you next week on the Mario Cristobal Show.